Hello students, let's continue our chapter life process, and we were talking about the topic respiration, and this is the second video on the topic respiration. In today's video we are going to discuss about human respiratory system. Okay, so in human respiratory system it composed of a pair of lungs, okay, and these are attached to a system of tubes which open one to outside through the nostrils. So let's see the main structures in the human respiratory system. So the first part is the nostril. Okay, these are the very important part. Okay, nostrils, and two nostrils which coverage to form a nasal passage. That means the nose contains the nostrils and there is a nasal passage, and the inner lining of the nostrils contains the linings by the lining of the hair, and it remains wet due to the mucus secretion. So what you have to remember, inside our nose there are nostrils, and inside those nostrils there are the hair present, and it is always remain wet due to the mucus secretion. And what is the function of a mucus? It helps in the filtering dust particles out from the inhaled air, and then the air is warmed up when it enters the nasal passage. Okay, then the second part is pharynx. It is a tube-like structures which continues after the nasal passage. That means soon after the nasal passage pharynx is present. Then next one is larynx. This part is after pharynx, and this is also called as the voice box. That means the sound production occurs in this larynx. Then trachea. And what is this? Trachea is or you can say trachea is composed of the rings of cartilage. Cartilage, you know, the cartilage is a soft bone. They are called as the cartilage. Okay, and cartilaginous rings prevents the collapse of trachea in the absence of air. In the absence of air, it should not collapse. The trachea should not collapse. That is why cartilaginous rings are present over there. And when the trachea is ended, bronchi is present. Okay, bronchi, a pair comes out from the trachea, like from the end of the trachea, one each bronchus going on to each lung. As you know, we have two lungs. The bronchi comes out from the trachea. One bronchus goes to each lung, and after the bronchi comes the bronchioles, and these bronchioles are divided into branches and sub branches inside the lungs. And once the bronchioles are divided into branches, at the end of the branches alveoli are present, and these are the air sacs at the end of the bronchioles. Okay, and this alveolus is composed of very thin membrane and is the place where blood capillaries open. That means from the alveoli blood capillaries are joined together. Okay, and this is alveolus, and where the oxygen mixes with the blood and carbon dioxide exit from the blood. So the exchange of gases in alveoli takes place due to the pressure differential. So here you can see the parts. This is the nasal cavity. As you can see, this part is called as the nasal cavity, and once the nasal passage is there, then directly comes the pharynx, and after pharynx there is the larynx. Can you see this part? Larynx. This is also called as the voice box. Okay, and after that you can see ring-like structure. Can you see this? Ring-like structures are present over here. This is called as trachea. Okay, and when this trachea is moved further down, these part, okay, the entry part, these two tube-like structure you can see over here. One is this one and another is this one. They are called as the bronchi. Okay, so the trachea, after trachea bronchi is there, and this trachea what it does, at the end of the bronchi, what happens, this bronchi is connected to the lungs. These two red colored things, can you see this one? These are the lungs. Okay, then after this bronchi, inside you can see this branches. Can you see this? I am showing this in a different color. Okay, can you see here? These are in different colors. These are the bronchioles. These are like the branches, that is why they are called as the bronchioles. And end of these bronchioles contains the alveoli. Can you see this one, small structure? These are called as the sac-like structures. We call it as alveoli. Here only the exchange of gases occurs. And below this there is a diaphragm. As you all know, the diaphragm separates our body from the abdominal region. Okay. So here also you can see this first one is the nasal passage. Okay. Then second one is the pharynx, then larynx. Okay. Then trachea. You can see over there. Okay. And after that, contains the bronchi, then bronchioles. Okay. Then after that it contains alveoli. Okay. After that alveoli, and all the alveoli contains the alveolar sacs. Okay. And where is the bronchi and bronchioles present? It is present inside the lungs, and the lungs are protected by the bone called as ribs. And just below all these respiratory system there is diaphragm. Okay. So you have to remember, inside this alveolar sac there is exchange of the gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and after this is connected to the blood capillaries. So here is the step by step like parts. How does it like the movement occurs, the passage of air through the respiratory system. In respiratory system, which all the parts are involved? First one is the nostril, that is your nose. Inside there is a tube like structure that is called as the nasal passage, then nasal cavity, then pharynx, then larynx, trachea, bronchi, which leads into the lungs, and inside the lungs contains the bronchioles, then contains the alveolar sac or alveoli, and this is connected to the blood capillaries, and through this blood capillaries only we get oxygen into the cells. You have studied, right? All the cells requires oxygen for the breakdown of the food. It comes from here only. Okay. So can you see here? This is the structure of alveoli. So what is the breathing mechanism? Let's see over here. In breathing mechanisms of lungs is mechanism of lung is controlled by the diaphragm and intercostalis muscles, the muscles which is present inside. Okay, and the diaphragm. This part is called as the diaphragm. Just below our respiratory system there is a diaphragm. Okay, diaphragm is a membrane which separates the thoracic chamber from the abdominal cavity. Okay. Thoracic chamber to the abdominal. Thoracic chamber means the chest cavity. Okay. And when the diaphragm moves down, the lungs expand. You have to remember, and air is inhaled. You have to remember, when the diaphragm moves down, lungs expand and air is inhaled. Okay. So you have to remember that one. Then when the diaphragm moves up, lungs contract and air is exhaled. Okay, you have to remember all these things. So here is the difference: action of diaphragm, action of intercostal muscles, thoracic cavity, air pressure and flow of air. What occurs in inhalation and what occurs in exhalation. In action of diaphragm, contractions occur and here it relaxes. Internal relax and external contracts. Here opposite occurs. And volume of thoracic cavity increases and it decreases. Air pressure in the thoracic cavity decreases and it increases. And air is drawn into the thoracic cavity and air is exhaled from the thoracic cavity. The same is written over here. Inhalation, the thoracic cavity or the chest cavity expands. It contracts. Ribs lift upwards. Rib moves downwards. Diaphragm becomes flat. Diaphragm becomes dome shaped. Can you see this? Dome shaped. This is called as the dome shaped. Okay. Then volume of lungs increases and air enters the lungs. Decreases and air exits the lungs. So let's see about the respiration in plants. Okay. Unlike plants and unlike animals and humans, plants do not have any specialized structure for the gaseous exchange. So they have stomata present on the leaves and lenticels present in the stems, which are involved for the exchange of gases. You have studied about stomata. Here also lenticels also are involved, which is present in the stem for the exchange of gases. And even the plant roots, stems and leaves respire at very low rate. Apart from the stomata and the lenticels, other parts also respire, but at very low rate. Then transpiration is a biological process in which water is lost in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plants. Okay, the process occurs mainly through the stomata, where the exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide also occurs. Okay, so the transpiration helps in the transportation of water from the roots to the upper parts of the plants, and this is explained by the transpirational pull theory. Okay, and the loss of water, especially from the leaves, acts as a straw effect and pulls water upwards from the roots. This is the another topic that has been given about the transpiration. And transpiration acts as the excretory mechanism in plants, and it helps to get rid of excess of water. Why do we need lungs? Okay, so in unicellular organisms like amoeba, exchange of gases takes place through a general body surface by osmosis. Okay, and in lower animals like earthworm, the gaseous exchange takes place through their moist skin. Okay, and the requirement of oxygen is sufficiently met by these ways. So in unicellular organisms, in lower animals, these the general osmosis process or diffusion process or exchange of gases through the moist skin is sufficient for them. But as this animal starts becoming more complex, for example human, we are also considered as animals, okay, category of humans, animals, so the oxygen cannot be met by diffusion itself. Okay, so we need one more process, or we need more process than the diffusion. So more diffusion will not be able to supply the oxygen to the deep seated cells. Like our body is composed of so many cells, and there are many cells which is like in the deeper section. So that is why this difficulty has led to the evolution of a more complex mechanism of gaseous exchange, and that is the development of lungs. That is why we are provided with lungs. And the alveoli which is present in the lungs, they provide a large surface area required for the necessary gas exchange. So what we have to remember, what is the function of alveoli? It provides a large surface area for the exchange of gases. So that's it all for today. We will be meeting up in our next video with our further topics. Thank you. Bye bye everyone.